Hi, welcome back to the bus build. Today we are working on something super fun, some might even say hot, and that is our wood stove install. So this is the Hobbit from Salamander Stoves, really nice little cast iron stove that we're going to be installing today. And it's probably going to be a two-part video to get this whole thing properly installed, but today I'm going to be working through sort of the technical and functional sides of the stove, walking you through everything that I've learned about installing a wood stove in a little tiny home like this bus. And then Emily, what are you going to be doing?
I'm going to be working on tiling this back area behind the stove. And we're super excited because this is the first time we're adding some color to the bus, a little personality and zest that'll be here for the long haul. So we deliberated a long time on the tile choice, and I'm really excited to show you what we picked out.
Awesome. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get after it. Let's do this. So isn't this a nice little stove? The team at Salamander Stoves do a great job, tremendous job actually, with design and overall look and feel of it. So I am going to be taking this stove off its stand right now and show you the inner workings of this fireplace setup, how the airflow is going to work for it, where we are storing wood, and how it is exhausting out through a chimney out of our rooftop. So let me go ahead and move this stove and show you all the inner workings here. Okay, so I want to walk you guys through all the research that I had to do in order to make this as safe as possible. And so there's a lot of things to cover, a lot of ground to cover with this. I'm going to keep it to one segment now. So we're literally working from the wood stove down, and then later on in this video I will talk about the chimney and the exhaust. So with that, let me go ahead and start talking about the backing to the wood stove. Now, with a heat shield, which we are going to be putting on heat shields on the left, right, and the rear of the stove, you can make about a 2 to 3 inch clearance to definitely non-combustibles. It might be combustibles as well. I'm talking in residential code for wood stove installs, but I know for sure it's non-combustible, 2 to 3 inches. And excuse me if I'm sort of botching some of the code. I did a lot of research a few weeks back, and it's not at the front of my memory right now, but for sure it's 2 to 3 inches from a non-combustible surface with heat shields. So we do make that with this cement board. We have an inch thick of rock wool behind it, which is non-combustible, and we have metal studs here. So we have a really strong code compliant backing to this wood stove, and the base here will be a stone base with this cement board as well. Now, one thing that you might be curious about is, what is that black circle back here? Well, this is a vent which is going to feed the fire with fresh air from the outside world. So, as you may know, fires need oxygen in order to operate efficiently, actually at all. And when you have a wood stove in a small space like this, even though it may not seem super small, the oxygen in here will basically be used up pretty quickly, and that fire will not burn as efficiently, if at all, after a certain point. So we need to pull fresh air from the outside world in order to create an effective burn, and also just an efficient situation for us, because this radiates heat when it's operating. So if you can imagine, all the air around this wood stove is starting to warm up as the stove is burning. And if you didn't have a fresh air inlet underneath it from the outside world, all that warm air that you're heating up is going back down underneath the stove, up into the combustion, and then out. So it sort of is a very inefficient process because you're using that warm air to fuel your fire. So with this, fresh air feeds the fire, goes underneath into the stove, up and out, and the warm air around us within the cabin of the bus continues to stay here and warm up further, okay? So let me talk about how that air inlet works, because this is a large 6-inch diameter tube that goes to the outside world, and obviously we don't want that open all the time. We may want to have it closed off if it's cold outside, if we feel a draft, whatever it may be. So let me go ahead and take this off and show you how it works. with the bottom removed, you can see the frame that we're putting the wood stove on, and this is where the bolts will go through the legs of the wood stove, through this steel frame, and then bolted down. So it's going to be really strong and secure, anchored there. And so there's also this marble slab that we got on Facebook Marketplace for 20 bucks, and we cut to size, and this helps us control that airflow that I was just talking about. So if you look underneath here, you can see there's a little handle that we installed, and you can pull this slab. So if you pull, all of a sudden that air inlet is now exposed, and you have fresh air coming into the bus. Now, the really awesome thing about this is that it could be pulled out partially like so, and if it's partial, then you're not hitting your leg up against it. Or it could be pulled out further, and it's a little mini hearth in a way, right? So you have a wood stove here. Now you have a non-combustible front surface. If something were to fall out of the stove, I know it's not foolproof, it's not a proper hearth, but it acts in a way kind of like one. And it's also a nice little slab that you can put, drinks on if you want them slightly warmed up, or if you have wet gloves, you can just put them here and they will dry out. So that's really neat. But I also wanted to just talk about, if it's pushed in here and there's still airflow coming through, that's now acting as a passive air inlet for the whole bus. So in a bus that is completely sealed off air-wise and water-wise, or to the best of our ability at least, there's not a lot of fresh air unless you open up a window or two to get a nice draft in here. So if we don't want to open up a window, all we need to do is pull that out like so, and you have air coming into the bus, and our exhaust fan, which is at the farthest, highest corner from the inlet, which is a max air fan. We could turn it on. Right now I have it covered up for dust and I don't want it to get dirty, but you essentially can see the fresh air is going to be pulled in all the way down there and just brought throughout the whole bus, up and out. So it's a really nice, subtle airflow system for us that keeps the bus from feeling stagnant if, it's muggy out or whatever it may be. We want to get some fresh air and not have to deal with the windows. This is a great little solution for us. And these little side compartments here is for a little wood storage or some tools to, keep the fire clean, or like a poker or something like that. And lastly, the last thing I want to talk about is wood storage. So there's a little wood storage here, but if you're like me and you grew up having fires, or you have fires a lot, is that you don't like getting wood when it's like cold outside, it's rainy, it's snowy, which is most of the time when you're having a fire, right? Well, what we installed here, which was a funny coincidence, is an ash door that we found on eBay. This was also Facebook Marketplace. Now, what used to be here was a big heater connected to the bus, which if you took the school bus to school, you knew if it was a cold winter that hot air would be blasting here right as you enter the bus. So that was always nice as a kid, but we took that out because we don't need the heater, and we replaced it with this little door. So this is an ash door that I think was made in the late 1800s. It's from a hardware store called Steinman, based out of Lancaster, PA, which I did some research on. It's one of the oldest hardware stores in the country, but they're not operating still. But I think this came from that store and most likely came from the late 1800s. But anyway, this is not an ash door to clean out all the ash from a fire throughout the year, but instead it's going to be a little place where we can store more wood, pull wood from, and then restock the little cubby back there when we need to. So it worked out really nicely. And the last part about this design, which it's so serendipitous, is if you look under here, which we're going underneath the bus now, this is our air inlet tube, right? So I put a little bug mesh net over it, but there's going to be our the wood storage box, like right here, and it's going to have that air inlet in it too. So if we need to have a way for fresh air to come into that box and sort of feed this air inlet. But the nice thing about this is if there's wood in that box and there's air inlets here and there's an air inlet that's pulling in air this way, that means continuously we're just getting this wood that's stored here dried out faster and faster because air is moving through it. So, I mean, I've had a smile on my face talking about this because it's like such a fun little design that it just came about, like everything sort of fit into place here. And there's a lot to talk about the top. That's the one thing that is probably not so serendipitous. It is a chimney system that I designed that has to come out not directly above the stove, but a few feet in front of the stove, so over here. So I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video, but let's go ahead and throw it over to Emily, who's going to be working on the base of the stove.
So we will begin tiling the bottom area where the stove will sit. And for that, we bought a large 24 by 24 tile that we'll be cutting to size. And we did this because we didn't really want to deal with the grout lines aesthetically, but also practically. With the stove, there will be ash, and you don't want the grout to stain, you don't want dust to build up in there. So we're really happy to just have one big clean tile. And so I will be cutting that this morning. And what we're doing here is tracing the cement board. This is already cut to size. We have our vent hole here, and we have our bolt holes where we will bolt the stove legs into place. So to make the first cuts, I'm going to run this through the wet saw, all these straight cuts, and then for the circle cut, I'm going to be using an angle grinder with a diamond blade, and we'll be using a diamond drill bit for these holes. Alright, so we have our cut lines drawn out, and one other thing that we have to consider is that we are in a moving vehicle, so there will be movement, and so we need to account for that with silicone caulk. Make sure there's a big enough gap where the planes change, so that's this line and that line. So we're actually going to take these in about 1/8 of an inch so we can fill that with silicone caulk.
What do you think?
It looks amazing.
Right?
I love it. I was a little worried that the color was a bit too light, but I think in this corner it actually looks a bit darker, and I really like the shade of it.
Nice. Do you want to give a little teaser of the backsplash for it?
Oh, yes. Da-da-da-da.
Nice. It's a nice little sky blue. Let's put it in the light here.
Nice and tranquil, peaceful.
Awesome. Cool. All right, so what's next then?
What's next? We got to drill the bolt holes for where the stove sits
Mm-hmm.
to make sure the stove doesn't tumble over when we're driving.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will use the angle grinder to make the vent hole back here.
Awesome.
And then we're applying mortar, putting the tile down, and that's that.
Awesome. All right, let's get after it.
So we are drilling some bolt holes using a diamond drill bit, and we're on low gear. You don't want to go super fast with this, and make sure to keep your area wet. Go in at an angle, kind of make some circles, and soon enough you'll have a hole. It is a beautiful day to be tiling. I'm super excited. This is my first time tiling, and luckily this first one should be pretty easy. Let's take a look. Of course, we're starting with this base here. The interesting thing about it is that we do have these bolts that will be going in, so I just have these little spacers that I'll put on the tile to make sure no mortar squeezes out into those holes. And then of course we have this vent hole back here with some cardboard to catch any mortar that falls. And yeah, we're just about ready to mix the mortar. We've got our DIY masking gel with some old grocery bags, and yeah, it should be really fun. I was a little too stressed to film while I was doing the trowel, just because I didn't realize how bulky and annoying the trowel would be in this tight space, but take a look so far. It could use a little work, but I'm getting there. Right now I'm just kind of wiggling it so those the air bubbles from the ridges of this collapse. I'm a little stressed. Alright, it's the next day. The tile is in, but it was a learning experience for sure. I did a lot of research prior to the tiling, so I kind of knew what to expect, but I think you need that hands-on experience to really know what you're getting into. I'm glad I have that experience now going into the rest of the tiling, but I was stressing out last night. Luckily, everything turned out great. The tile is in, it's secure, it fits. All the holes are cleared out. The vent is great. The silicone caulk first layer is in. We'll do more of that once the blue tiles are in. I'm so excited to put these in. I love this color. And yeah, let's get to cutting these. Blue tiles are going in. Exciting stuff.
All right, check it out. Emily is taking a break, but she totally killed this job. Looks amazing. Really well done for, second tile job ever. So we are letting the mortar dry and cure here, and she's gonna come back in later and do this second wall right here. So this was the hardest one by all means, and now this is pretty straightforward wall. So really excited, love the color, and soon we're gonna have our wood stove in place, so keep an eye out. That looks so good. All right, it's time to do the reveal. What do you guys think? Do you think it'll look good? Dun, da, 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 da.
Check it out.
That is awesome. It's cute. It's peaceful. It's, I don't know, it's serene.
Just imagine a little fire in here.
Do you want to pull out the little hearth?
Let's do it.
Nice.
We still have to grout.
Yep.
And clean off the tiles.
Uh-huh.
But we're loving the vibe.
Yeah, it's really great. And we'll put some trim over the backside, put the heat shields on, and let me just take you guys all, get the chimney part in here, or the flue part, and then I'll do a little outro to this video. But great job, Emily. I think you absolutely killed it. Boom. All right, guys, so quickly I'm going to go over the exhaust flue system for this stove, but we're going to be installing it and getting everything up and running within the next video. So instead of my face on this glass, you will see a flame, and hopefully everything is all good. But quickly here, the exhaust is basically designed to work like this. So because of solar panels up on this portion of the roof, we need to take the flue through this wall at a 90-degree elbow, up and then out this way. And that is complicated to do, but we have all of our parts already. We are using double wall insulated flue parts, which essentially means you have an inner liner, you have ceramic insulation, and then you have the outer flue here. And what that does is it creates minimal radiant heat on the outside, so this is a lot cooler than other systems. And the inside is a lot hotter because it's insulated. And that's important because creosote and water vapor, if the flue gets colder, the higher it gets away from the stove itself, those things can stick to the walls of the flue and become a fire hazard, and just something that you have to maintain. So we're doing our best to prevent that, and this system with the double wall insulated is the safest route to go. So that's all going to be talked about in our next video. If you want to keep an eye out for it, feel free to subscribe. But this has been a really fun project so far, so we hope you enjoy it, and we will see you around.